Welcome all of you to this very special event today, to the first TouchDesigner Meetup in 2022. My name is Bileam Tschepe, and I'm based in Berlin. I've been working with TouchDesigner for 3 years. I'm an artist and designer and teacher. Just about the structure that this meetup's gonna go. Well, we're gonna have our first, our speakers talk and present what they want to present. And so we have 3 main speakers, actually 4. And then we also have Greg, who's gonna share some works. I'm not actually sure what he's gonna share. So it's gonna be a surprise. So first up, we're gonna start with Junior, also known as Fingercode, who's gonna share some works with media devices. And we're gonna see some works of Daniel Shambo, who's gonna talk about VR. And I'm gonna see the presentation of Soyun and Leo from RGBDog. And they're gonna talk about their RGBDog volumetric interview project. So I'm very excited about all of these. So I'd say we just get started with Junior, and the stage is yours.
Right. Yeah. Hi. I'm Junior. I've been using TouchDesigner for about 2 years now. So I started at the beginning of lockdown, and I've more or less been using it every day throughout the whole time. And it's a very interesting piece of kit. It's probably the most diverse, piece of kit that I've used in a long time. And I'm not saying this because Greg's here, and I promise you, no one's paying me. So without further ado, let's get started. So yeah, a lot of the work that I do is generally interactive, and I try to experiment with, body motion, fluid motion, fire, and everything in between. I do enjoy an occasional dance in front of my Kinect and, whatever the device I've got playing. So in front of me today, I have a launch pad and I have a machine, but we're going to be mainly focusing on the launch pad. So I'm just going to change my screen. Excuse me. Nice touch. Right. Okay. Cool. Right. So within TouchDesigner, I've had this MIDI pad for a couple of years now, and I originally bought it to do music with, but like most of my hobbies, they come and go. So I've just had this gathering dust, and with last year and summertime and everything, I started playing around with it, trying to see what different things I could do with it. And the quickest and the simplest example that I could come up with was this simple block mover. So I've got a series of blocks that are mapped to each one of these buttons on here, and it's a very simple, very fun thing, but because I develop a lot of these things at home, it's very difficult to get genuine feedback. So you just post it on the internet, right? So I had the benefit of attending an RX Code event, and I'll show you some footage from there. Okay, cool. Yeah, so here's some footage of just people playing with the actual device. And something that I noticed whilst watching them play was there was a childlike manner that came across their face, like the smiles and, just it's one thing to build something in your living room, and it's another thing to actually have it out there in the world and for people to actually, enjoy it and play with it. So that, I developed a second version of this as well, actually on the night, which I also let the people play with. And that was a very fun experience. Now, the event in question was based around NFTs. And, there was a lot of talk about generative art and minting and, a whole bunch of words. At this particular moment in time, I had no interest in NFTs. But hey, here's a topic I feel very strongly about. So here we go. The N word. Right. So I spent maybe 1 week or so focused on, the NFTs and I didn't quite understand it, right? So when I actually got my proper introduction at this event, this is the first thing that I actually made after. And weirdly enough, it sold for $4,000, which is about 1.1 Ethereum. I still don't quite understand it, but maybe you can look at it and you can tell me how you feel about it. You can leave the messages in the chat, but yeah, someone appreciated it. And I actually made this as an experiment of like, just to try and see how far I can push TouchDesigner, because for a long time I was mainly doing like Kinect-based stuff and yada, yada. Right. So with that in mind, I'll go on to the next part, which was the generative art. So for those of you that understand what generative art is, it's not about designing something consistently, but it's about setting boundaries. So this quote here, I really like: generative design is not about designing the building, it's about designing the system that builds the building. So what does that look like in the current in the current NFT phase? So Dmitry Cherniak has probably one of the most successful projects out there, the Ringers project. It's 1,000 editions, and it's all written in JavaScript. And the different ones, they vary wildly. But there's a unifying theme across all of them. And this is something that I've definitely tried to replicate within TouchDesigner, because my JavaScript is not as great as his is, as you could probably tell. So I built projects like Litmus project, which is essentially just a bunch of noises. We've got some chops, we've got some tops, and a load of just random experimentation. And until I eventually came to this, I've picked a particular colorway, which I've kind of stuck with ever since then. So you're probably wondering, how does that relate to what I'm showing you today? So this is another one as well, same thing. So if we go back now to TouchDesigner, right, awesome. Right, so within here, I've got my, all my MIDI device information coming in. I then pass it into this particular context here. So if I just switch, right. So this one is just another interactive form that I've set up using the MIDI controller. And then this is where I started playing with the whole concept of generative design, because it's what, like I said, not everyone's technical, but I believe everyone's creative. And the way that code works, there's a lot of abstractions, so I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, you had to know how to write C++. Now you can probably use a JavaScript library to actually access that. And I was thinking, what if someone could, quote unquote, do generative art, but with just their hands and, motion sensors and a whole bunch of other things. So we've come to this. So how this actually works, I'll just open up here. So bear with me. Right, so I've actually got a bunch of cubes that are mapped, like I said, to each one of these values. And with quite a bit of processing, which happens within blur 1. Well, it's actually not that much processing, it's just a bit of blurs. So, I've done some blurs, some delays, and a bunch of other filtering. And then that gets sent through to another container, which is this boy here. And I've, once again, more processing, creating different designs. So the ability for users to play with this, I think there's definitely a case for possibly, people go into an interactive show and, playing with these devices and then being able to mint that experience onto the blockchain. And I've got different examples. So this one here is one of my favorites. It's very abstract, really cool colors, followed up by this boy here, which is a bit more pixelated. So maybe something like gaming related. And you've probably noticed as well, the Launchpad itself holds some of these colors. These are just delays that I've got data coming in from when I press, and then I send data back out. I've set lags on the chops that go back out to the MIDI device. So you get these, nice little delays on the buttons themselves with the lights, so on and so forth. And I think I probably have one more example. This one's my favorite. It's really extremely subtle. We'll go back to that one. Go back to one previously. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's my pushing art demonstration, and yeah, open to any questions.
All right, thank you so much. That's really, really cool. So a few points. That one thing you said in the beginning, I totally noticed that as well, with the interactivity, that the childlike wonder that people have there. And it's like one little just reference that when I was teaching students of mine, and these are not like children, right? They're like 30 years old. And they were like, we're just controlling like the position of a rectangle with your hand with the Kinect, and they were like completely blown away. And it's lovely to see people just really being in awe just with the simplest things.
Yeah. And like, I think that's also seeing that interaction definitely pushed like my scope with this project, because like I said initially, it was just me pushing boxes up and down, but then seeing how people react to these colors, I was like, okay, cool, we can make this as mad as we want. It's also, I think it's a good way to introduce people to the concepts of generative art. It's not just necessarily code based, it can also be node based, or better still, the bounds are limitless, essentially.
Yeah, I really like what you did with the interactive generative art thing, that you just have this grid and you really abstract the grid, and you also send the data back to the launchpad. So really nice work.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm blown away by the 4K for that artwork.
I really like the super simplicity of it too. It's all very graspable, and I think very accessible by anybody who steps up to it. So, and I like what you said about the making art from just gesturing with your hands and body motion versus the coding of it. That's trying to get people kind of beyond the ASCII code that is underneath it all.
And like something that someone said to me actually was, it reminds them of like finger painting. So you know how kids are just like playing around with like paint and whatever. And I would actually have used this machine here because the sensitivity is actually a lot better, so you can get way better results. But we're not completely limited to just the Launchpad. This is any MIDI device that you can plug in. I've built examples using like the Tractor DJ turntables. So it's a great.
Interesting too.
Yeah.
It would be cool if you even like live mixed it to the DJ pole, right? To the DJ. So if he's like scratching or like playing different tunes, like it automatically visualizes that.
Yeah. So one thing that I'd like to do at some point, time dependent, is actually get an Ableton set built. So as the person actually performing on the Launchpad, there's graphics that are coming from the same instance of the same MIDI signal. But these are like use cases that I haven't come across just so far. But the possibilities are endless though.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. So our second speaker is Daniel Shambo. So introduce yourself, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Bileam. So, hello everyone. As Bileam said, I am Daniel Shambo. I'm a designer and interactive artist. I work a lot with new media, but also with animation. And today I'll be talking about how I'm using VR to create handmade VR assets and why they're great for interactive content. So, well, I'm going to talk a bit about myself before. So these are some of the projects I've worked in, obviously with cool teams and learning a lot from the community and what can be done. So I do a lot of live performances, stuff with theater and video mapping, designing facades, and also trying to merge the worlds of animation and like really cool hand-drawn stuff with 3D. So that's my vibe. And just as you were saying, Junior, the first really big project I did in TouchDesigner was this one called Chimera Lab. It was my thesis in the university, and so it was basically a system where the user could create speculative beings that could exist in the bottom of the ocean. So what I did was to have like a parametric setup connected to an Arduino, and it was actually kind of like an aquarium, so people had to put their hands inside the water and move stuff around in order to change the virtual being. So keep in mind, this was all before the pandemic, so like people weren't afraid of putting their hands inside water that had been touched by lots of people. So yeah, this was a really cool project, and it opened up like a new world to me, showing me what could be done without like any real programming knowledge. I had done some stuff with processing and P5.js, but seeing this 3D real-time stuff was like a dream come true, because like I said, I work a lot in animation, and seeing how people could create their own beings was really cool. So at the end of the experience, I saved each one as an OBJ, and I sent them to everyone. And I also had the chance to 3D print some of them in a printer that used resin, so it was kind of squishy, and it all related very well. So yeah, this was like my first approach to TouchDesigner, and here you can see some of the outcomes. And yeah, this was Chimera Lab. And another part that it's like transversal to my work is biology. So I can't exit here. Okay. It's biology. So yeah, what's going on? Okay. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. It's the latest interactive installation I did. It was done at Timbo Studio, which is a studio here in Bogota, Colombia. And it was about bringing life to a garden. So to do that, I used a software called Quill in the Oculus headset. So I'm going to explain to you a bit how it works. You basically can paint and animate in 3D space in real time. So this is an example of me making some really simple particle systems. So you have like an anim brush where you can move your hand around, and as you paint, you leave these strokes, these 3D strokes laid out in space. So like in I think I made this particular one in 1 minute, and I did this other one, which I'm going to show a little bit more about in the breakout session if you want. So yeah, for example, here what I'm doing is I'm choosing a brush. You have different brush types, like if you want a cube brush, a sphere brush, a ribbon brush, which is flat. And depending on which one you use, you get different types of geometry. And you have to keep that in mind when you bring it to TouchDesigner, because, for example, the sphere brush is the most heavy one, and the ribbon brush, which is just like one plane, is really, really light. And so it's a different approach to having to create particle systems and to create 3D assets. And so it's really fun to play around. And I've recently managed to get it working with TouchDesigner. And so I'm really happy to be here sharing it with you. Yeah, so these are some of the works I've done inside of Quill. So it's very related to animation. And so I create these characters, and I can animate them quite quickly, actually, because you don't have to go through the whole 3D pipeline process of modeling, rigging, creating UVs, texturing. It's just you choose a color, you paint, and it's really akin to the animation in that sense. Okay. Stop, please. Okay. This is another one I did. It was made in for a contest. Well, for more of a like community project in the virtual animation group. So we're making a fighting game inspired in Super Smash Bros. And I did this character, and I made like all the little animations, and someone else is programming it in Unity, and it's actually going to be playable in VR. So that's going to be cool. And yeah, this is me keeping on exploring and managing to bring VR into actual projects. So this is an animation. And finally, we get to the project. So for this one, this is the final thing. I'll let the video play and I'll talk a bit about it. So this was done for an event here in Colombia about the Minister of Technology. So we did this installation that was present there the whole week. And it was really fun seeing children and adults and groups of people that started dancing here and creating plants. And so it was quite a magical experience, because this wasn't done in Bogota, which is the capital, but in Barranquilla, which is a city near to the coast. Well, it's a coast city, and I don't think people there had ever seen something of this type of interactivity. So I had people ask me about how this was possible, and I shared them the software and kind of the tools, because a lot of them are students that are interested in these fields of animation technology and creative expression. So it was really fun to be able to share this and hopefully inspire some new guys into this generative interactive world, which is really, really fun. Okay, so when I go full screen, it changes. So this is some of the process. If someone wants to see more about this, they can ask me in the breakout session. At first, it was going to be a full DOM experience, and so I did some tests. And then I came across this tutorial of creating a bend deformer, and I changed some stuff around in order to create this grass that can grow and shrink in real time. And so this was the project before I used Quill. I learned a lot with the workshops of Akiko Yamashita in the TouchDesigner study group. But I wanted to have more control in the art direction department and being able to model stuff quickly. So this is where I introduced VR into the pipeline. And these are some of the assets. Here you can see that the poly count is really, really low. And because you don't have to texture, you can use the vertex colors and they do everything for you. So that's really cool. And so this is what it looks like afterwards, after I bring in the VR assets. So I can show you this video, but I think I'll prefer to go into TouchDesigner and show you just for a bit it in real time. So bear with me just a second. I'm gonna take this one. Okay, so I have my Kinect connected, and what it's basically doing is using the position of the Kinect in 3D space, and I have like a map I'm using to tell the plants where to grow, and some bit of randomness in here and there too. And yeah, it's basically one system copied and pasted like 10 or 12 times. But it's surprisingly, well, I was very surprised at how much I could push the computer. I'm working in a laptop, and I managed to get like 30 frames per second with all these assets running in real time. So it's really cool because it allows me to have complex scenes without the need for lots of performance. And here is the night version, which is just some basic hue and saturation adjustments. And yeah, I can go inside the code if someone wants to get a sneak peek at how it works, but essentially it's just like this is the player index, which I'm using to drive the animation, and I change it for each one of the plants. So I can decide, like I can populate where I want some plants to grow, and so it's not just a grid where you can see like all the vertex and all the plants growing like super squared. Yeah, that's it. Let me go back here, and yeah, this is like this part over here is the meat of the code. This is duplicated for each one of the assets. So I bring in my model. I instance it in a plane, and I can decide the scale of the plant depending on where the user is. And so I'm currently working in bringing in some more complex stuff, and I actually got to, like a couple weeks ago, I managed to have animations working inside of TouchDesigner. So I can bring in these quill animations, which are done very, very quickly, just like I showed you. And then I take this model, I bring it into TouchDesigner, I can animate it. And here I made an instancing setup with a cold noise tutorial I found. And I have like this flocking penguin scene. There's still work to be done, but I think it's looking cool. And this is the last one I'm going to show you. So I took the example I showed earlier of how to use the anim brush, and these are some of the results I get when I bring it to TouchDesigner and play around with it. Just adding some noise and copying it. And the last one is using it as a driver for a particle system. So it's quite fun because you get a cool starting point, which is very light, and then you can start to get crazy and make your computer fans go nuts. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And thank you again, Bileam, and to everyone for allowing me to share some of my work.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. I don't know, made me so happy to watch you present. And,
Thank you.
so it was so much fun. And I don't know, especially also seeing these people in front of the screen, like just like messing around. You can really see kind of that there was probably the first time that they did that.
Yeah, totally.
So nice, so nice. And I love also the your first project, the connection with actual water. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everything. It's just such a unique approach. I've never seen anything like this, really, like somebody making 3D assets in the VR world and actually making your own light assets then, and then putting them into TouchDesigner and connecting that to Kinect. Is like it's so many different things that you're connecting. It's crazy. Like really.
Yeah, it's been like I've got other pieces of things I can do, and like one day I just thought, well, I can put it all together in one project and see if it works. And so it was actually crazy for me to see that it works so smoothly. Yeah.
I like how you maximize your use of what you're bringing in from Quill, because as you told me before, those are just alembic files. Yeah. And they're just a sequence of geometry that are point colored, as you said. Mm-hmm. And you're just controlling the index into the alembic file. So scrub it back and forth to make it grow and shrink, or just loop them. But you're really making a maximum use of what you're bringing in from Quill. It's really a great interface that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually so much fun, because working in animation, like you have this idea that you can bring to life stuff, and that's like the whole premise of animation for me. The most, like when you start learning animation, everyone tells you go buy this book and it's called The Illusion of Life. And so It's the old Disney masters and the principles they came up with to be able to convey emotion and life through animation. And so once you have the headset on, and you can actually feel the animation as you're doing it, and you move the stuff around, it's like a dream come true to an animator. And then being able to mess around with it in a parametric way in TouchDesigner, it just opens up so many possibilities. I don't think I've scratched the surface.
Yeah, seems like it. And the final result, have you tried going into that with like VR as well?
No, I haven't. That's on my bucket list.
Nice. Looking forward to seeing that.
Cool.
All right, thank you so much. And now we'll continue with the first speakers. So Soyun and Leo from RGBDog. And yeah, the stage is yours.
My name is Soyun and
I'm Leo.
We are from RGBDog, a community-based studio in The Hague, based in The Hague in the Netherlands. First, we would like to introduce a little bit about ourselves. Myself is Soyun Park from South Korea. I live in the Netherlands, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist who works with different mediums like music and also stage and performances, and mostly live performance on the stage. And I'm founder of the studio RGBDog, where we make a lot of cultural projects that we promote creative use of technology.
I'm Leo, interactive media artist, trained in the Netherlands. Also quite passionate about technology and multimedia. And mostly I work with immersive media and volumetric, which leads us to the project we did.
It's called Volumetric Interviews. We present volumetric interviews. We would like to share the screen first. Yeah. So we want to introduce a little bit about the project. Volumetric Interviews is to introduce creatives who are working with technology, music, and art, and they build amazing communities with it. So they bridge people by developing technology that we never thought of, like a very positive and ethical or encouraging use of technology. And I started to think of projects that when I was in my bachelor, doing my bachelor, and I saw Leo working with Kinect and also TouchDesigner. Not at the time you were using TouchDesigner actually. He started TouchDesigner with this project. Can you see the sound maybe?
Yeah.
We can show you the video with the sound from the beginning. It's this introduction of the project. I think it will give you a better idea of what project it is.
This way.
Hi, I'm Soyun.
And I am Leo.
From RGBDog. Volumetric Interviews is to introduce creatives who are building supportive communities with meaningful use of technology.
For the first episode, we interviewed Thorwald, co-founder and chief creative officer at Bitburn.
So on the 13th of October, this Wednesday at 8:30 p.m., we're going to have a live streaming premiere and
a workshop on volumetric captures and renders with the use of softwares like TouchDesigner and Unity.
So meet us at twitch.tv/RGBDogTV.
And ask anything you are curious about.
See you there.
Ciao.
Yeah, so we started this project with curiosity of how can we bring this positive use of technology. In the meantime, we are living in this digital age that's lots of depressing use of technology are just dictating our lives on mobile, or even our movements, like where to move and where to eat. It's all very dictated by large corporation companies. I find it a bit very depressing at the moment. So we wanted to introduce people who specifically like having amazing these communities with a very creative use of technology. So that this is our first episode filming plays.
Oh, yeah, actually, I can show the YouTube link. Good.
Yeah. So this is our first episode with Dora Vandenacker, who made record label. They call it record label, but they do a lot of projects that are overcoming this stage of like music label. So they do projects on web. They do projects that are bridging physical space and then virtual space, and they have a large community on Discord, which they really bridge people by music and making art together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did I do in this project? I was the volumetric technologist that was dealing with everything that related with the volumetric side of the project, from the very first stage of researching which tools and techniques were available for us, and to setting up a volumetric rig for location shooting, because it wasn't on a studio. Actually, it was a very small place. I think it's 10 square meters, 12 square meters.
Oh, maybe it would be also nice to introduce a little bit why we chose volumetric technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we chose this because I've been thinking that this volumetric capturing is looking back the development of photography. And back in the days, they developed from fine arts, paintings, and photography to really capture the memory, capture the moment. And we thought the volumetric capturing is a future of how memory capturing. So, yeah, we wanted to capture this current moment, current society with volume. So that was like the starting of this project.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then also we're just very much excited about both the technical and the aesthetical side of volumetric capture. So we did our research, and then we actually realized that there are a few softwares out there, but they're not really affordable. They're mostly targeted at commercial projects, and mostly they come also in packages, so it's not really customizable. And so we set ourselves a mission, and as emerging artists, we don't have big budgets, and usually also these volumetric productions, they're done in big studios covered with green screens and 100 cameras, or 6 to 10 third generation Kinect, but we didn't have this stuff. And our mission was also to create a sort of a knowledge that then we could share with our community for them to replicate it. So we used a very DIY setup that anybody else could use, and we used 3 second generation Kinect. We recorded with the Breakill point cloud, which is a beta program, and it's affordable. This was the first test. And and then also we didn't want to shoot in the studio, we wanted to shoot on location. So we needed something that was kind of modular. And and then once we captured, the fun part began, which was rendering, processing this volumetric data, rendering and editing it. And there I started using Unity because that's what I was more comfortable with. But we realized that we needed something more playful to play with these particles, with these point clouds. And there I started, actually. First time I installed TouchDesigner. Soyun already knew it. And let's see. There we go. And there we found out that it was very easy to play with this technology, and very fun as well. And then we created this kind of toolkit that we wanted to share with our community. And actually, if you go to RGBDog.studio, you can download it yourself here and play with it. I'm gonna quickly walk through it. It's just basic stuff. It's nothing very complex technically, but you can play around with it. You can really. So this is how we shot the interviewees we had breakable point cloud. We exported a alembic point cloud. It's an animated point cloud, and then we extract a color map and a position map for the points. This is all geometric instancing, and then we have a bit of displacement effect for noise or for thresholds. Then another fun part was to match this with the background. And for the background, we also made a photogrammetry. So this is actually the room that we used. This is all done with very affordable technology. So actually, I shot this with my phone. And we didn't need it to be super realistic, but already the aesthetic is what we're looking for here. And let's see. And also here, same concept. So you have the point file in, point cloud file in, and then you have the point position, the normal map, and the color map. And then here I have some turbulence, which is oops, it's not even working. But yeah, it's working. But it's a basic feedback with some noise, a displacer here. And this is all we used for the episode.
Yeah, we can show them a little bit how we used it. Yeah. Let's see.
So, for example, find the right spot.
Yeah. So we combined with normal footages, like we also had 3 DSLR cameras, and then we combined them with these images that we exported from TouchDesigner.
Yeah.
Maybe right before how it translates. For example, from like it was normal footage to completely different environments. Mm-hmm. And we find this project as a journey, like throughout the episodes, because we have 4 episodes ready. So the second one is with an organization called Hackers and Designers based in Amsterdam. And they're making also a lot of really interesting workshops and really interesting events involving people who are building supportive communities also with creative use of technology. And we are going to use maybe something that we learned more from the first episode. So we find this as like constant learning, constant process, also just us together in the team. So if you would like to watch the episode, you can see it on YouTube. It's called Music for Community.
Yeah. And again, you can download the file we used. Again, this is also quite political for us in the sense that we want. It is a project about community, and ourselves we want to give back to the community of art and tech passionates by sort of creating this knowledge, package it, and then distribute it for other people who play around with this and maybe experiment and apply it to other contexts. That's it.
Yes, we would love to hear if there is any question. And thank you so much for having us here. We are very happy to share our project.
All right, thank you. Thanks so much. It's a really cool, unique idea. Like I've never seen anything like it again. So it's cool, like a connection of interaction and interviewing and technology. So really, really nice work. I also love that you brought a dog into the presentation.
Yeah, that's graffiti.
Yeah, his name is Graffiti.
And I mean, you have a lot of possibilities of putting different environments in the background. So that would be interesting too, to see different photogrammetries of like any kind of environment in the background. So
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, I like your kind of modular components of kind of composing a scene from your raw performance you captured, and then you're adding extra elements in, and you're adding your displacements in and all that stuff. So it's kind of nice to see you kind of composing the look of your set kind of in your post-production process. So in the end, you're going to end up with interview movie clip that are kind of composed from the regular RGB camera and your point cloud stuff, kind of cut between the two and everything like that?
Yeah, exactly. That was the first episode of it for. Also, I think it's important to point out that I did not use TouchDesigner before. We're not coders, we're not programmers, we're just creatives, like Junior said.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's creative.
Oh, that's really good.
More impressive then.
I really found it fascinating, the learning curve of this to you know, just using these nodes and applying some displacement, applying some this and that. And also it was really cool that there was always a tutorial for everything when I needed it. And, yeah, so it was really, really easy to play with. And I hope that by sharing the file, by sharing the...
Yeah, that's great.
I've got one question. So I noticed in there you had like different angles. Is that's obviously different cameras, but are you running all those cameras on one machine, or did you create the networks? I know we spoke about this briefly before, right?
That's the thing with the second generation Kinect. They only run one per laptop. I actually used a laptop from 2006.
So we have 3 laptops in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were 3 laptops connected by a router, and then the software we used, Breaker Point Cloud, actually allowed you to play with multiple cameras.
Oh, okay.
Then the alignment actually was manual.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest job in post-production, to align every single...
It looks really, really good. Looks really good. Because I'm actually curious if the Kinect Azure would, like, I mean, if you guys can get one, I've got one here too, so let's link up and build.
Yeah.
One last little question I have for you is, what else do you do as RGBDog studio?
Good question. Yeah, we've been working on Volumetric Interactivity very hard, but we are preparing for technology meetups in space in The Hague, actually. So monthly meetup, and then we just share what we did. And then we also want to go on a trip together or something. So we are just creating some sort of community activities.
Come over to Berlin.
Yeah, we would love to. Yeah, we would love to do that. We were at first thinking of like going to museums or like have theme, and then we just go like when we were studying at school or something, because we need it a lot here after graduation. So very need of the community being next to you.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, RGBDog is definitely community driven, and
cool.
Yeah, we're gonna keep on with that mission. So give back to the community, you know, join more people, and it's not just physical communities, also digital communities or phygital communities.
Yeah, very luckily we got funded for this project by 3 different Dutch organizations, so we could be also ethically working together.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for being here and presenting.
Thank you so much.
So, well, relative to the other speakers, this is kind of like relatively boring. At Derivative, I'm one of the people in what I call the test department, which is one of my jobs there, and that's where we make components to try and test and design new features of TouchDesigner and see how easy it is to use TouchDesigner to build a small specific things. So this week I was doing an overhaul of some of the components that are in the palette, and this time it was the overhaul of the blend modes component. So blend modes is really a wrapper around the composite top. So it's most basic thing, like take 2 pictures and do something with them and combine them together as 2 rasters. So nothing more simple than that. And there's a whole bunch of blend modes here that are like the Photoshop style blend modes. So that's fine. But if you want to perform the most basic thing in VJing is combining 2 images together, kind of live, where you're making all sorts of live real-time decisions about how to combine things and stuff like that. So doing things via the composite top is pretty lame. So blend modes is really the idea of making something that you can use in a live performance, and that's kind of generic. So so it is in the most basic sense, you are basically picking a blend mode and then up here previewing it and saying, oh, I like the look of that, bang, that goes to my output. Fine. So, and we do have like all of the blend modes down here, but when you're performing live, it's kind of ridiculous to be kind of figuring, oh, I kind of like that one, I like that one. So you want to have your favorites. So that's why we have the favorites list here. So you can go design it so you can go and just pick which one you want to look at. Let's say I prefer, I don't like XOR so much. I'll use overlay instead, kind of thing. So turn that off, turn that on, and so on. And so I got that in my favorites list. So that can happen very quickly. So while you're performing, you got your favorites here, and you say, okay, fine, I want difference, and go. So that's fine. That's just pure cut. But as DJs do, they crossfade stuff. So yes, you have your A source and your B source and something in between. So the something in between is one of the blend modes. So the nice thing about this is you can kind of preview it before you actually choose it. So bang, cut to that, or go left side, and I'm going to want to go to the difference in the middle. So difference and over to my B channel. Fine. And then I wanted to go a little bit further for sophisticated VJs who want to do a bit more and say, okay, fine, I like this blend mode, but I want to crossfade over to this blend mode. So you got this thing down. Now it's an XY slider. So you can go one blend mode to the other, over to the second input, over the first input. So it's pretty flexible with just a couple of finger taps if you're using a touch screen. So overall, oh yeah. So also you're also doing things that's not jarring to your audience if you just want to do gentle things from one thing to another. So pretty flexible, and you can stick it into any other panel you're designing. So this thing is currently it's also designed. The other thing you want to design is it can fit anywhere. So right now it's this. Here's the width and height, but you want to be able to design it so you can add to any size. So it's procedurally determined how you use your space up. So laying stuff out is always kind of like a challenge. So you want to be able to support any kind of aspect ratios of your of the panel that you're going to stick it in. And you can also do that via, I think this is working now, size from window. This flag down here lets you bring this thing up in a pop-up window. And if you change the size here, yeah, it all adjusts as well. So this allows you to change the width and height when you're modifying the pop-up window size. So you can, even if it's in a pop-up window, you can adjust aspect ratios and stuff like that. So that's fine. Also, what I try to do is whenever we have a component with a UI interface in a panel, I try and match it with the parameters. So the parameters are all the controls here are reflected in the parameters here. So when I preview and select, these parameters change, and so on. Yeah, even this radio button up here is a menu, and so on. So that's all done through binding, because you see the little purple notch here means this parameter is bound to something inside, which happens to be a UI gadget. So, oh yeah, also the even all the my favorites are this list. So there's just a list of parameters with all of the blend modes down here, and you can take things out of your favorites list and add things in, kind of thing. So you can do that either via the UI here, or via parameters, or via expressions that come from somewhere else, or scripts and so on. So and there's all sorts of other choices that you often want to make about the way you lay things out in a UI. So I added 2 channels, which lets you weight whether how prominent the previews are versus the stuff in between it, kind of thing. So that's yet another procedural control. So I'm kind of going overboard with laying things out here, but like I said, we're just trying to figure out how easy it is to make stuff in TouchDesigner. And this stuff is using, the reason why I was in there this week was because it uses the, we'll go inside. It uses the, let's go inside one of the buttons. Yeah, it uses the new text component, which is the resolution independent super crisp text component, which is here kind of thing, which is this button is built up from all these parts. So, oh no, hang on. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, yeah, nice tiny button. That's right, which is pulls in the composite of all the possible blend modes and crops it out kind of thing. And this is just a panel on top, and you always have to turn on the this click through panel thing, so that click through, so that when you click this thing, you're not actually clicking the text, you're clicking the panel itself. So that's kind of the way these things are built up, with replicating, of course. And oh yeah, here's another one of the last things is I often avoid making extensions and stuff like that. Basically, this component contains internal parameters which help me define the laying out of even this button. So, well, all of the whole layout. So each of these parameters is expression, and it basically, we end up with the heights and widths of all the parts of the user interface. So this is basically a script. It does this, and then it does that, and basically one by one, it builds up procedurally the values of the sizes of everything from stuff here. So you could also do this stuff in an extension, of course. So like whenever a size of something changes, you call it a function which lays thing out again. But for me, I like this because you can see all your results in progress, like as they are being changed. So as you change the size of things, yeah, like a lot of these parameters change. You can see the expressions reevaluating on the fly. So in a way, I prefer using internal parameters and just evaluating lots of expressions and building stuff up, because you can actually see your numeric results as you're doing them. So, and I guess that's kind of it. So in conclusion, for blend modes, we wanted to take a simple function and like as simple as combining two images, and just consider all the design issues for its usability and its adaptability and its configurability. So I kind of picked that out of a hat from stuff that I was working on this week, but also just even super hot off the press. Even derivative people haven't seen this yet, except for one who coded this. This is the new geotext component, which is being enhanced build by build as we release it in experimental. So this just went in a couple of almost hours ago. It's just basically scattering text all over the place using a table. So basically, if you have lots of text and you want to kind of customize where things go and how it looks, you can build up a table and pass it to the geotext component. This is the program. Hold on, let's bring this window over. This is the, okay, so this is the probe. I don't know if some of you people have used probe, but it's a view on networks and what's computing within it. So probe's been around for a long time and helps you really analyze which nodes are taking how much time in execution. However, we didn't actually have any labeling on it before, so I just put this in yesterday based on the geotext component. So with that table, let's see, custom, I also wanted to explore for all the text, I wanted to explore being able to randomize the size and then randomize the rotations of everything and randomize the colors and randomize alignment and so on. So all this stuff is being rendered in 3D with one table, and it's really fast. So before you would have had to use a text top in a whole bunch of replicants, clones, and this is no longer necessary. This all runs really nice in 3D, and so this is a kind of hot off the press for those people who are making lots of flying around text that forms into shapes and stuff like that. This will be kind of a useful, pretty useful tool to use. So that's kind of it for what I wanted to show briefly.
Thank you. Amazing. I love that you're pushing text much more. That's such an important part.
Yeah, it really is. We really put a lot of effort in the new experimental in making text kind of a priority in TouchDesigner, because for infographics and for anything that communicates in any language, like literally any language, it's very important. So we're really trying to get that to be fluid and fluent in touch. So
yeah, no, that's awesome, because like I recently did some ASCII text video rendering. So
yeah,
I'm gonna, when is this planning? When is this supposed to come out?
This one will be in the next experimental that we put out. So it'll be in a couple of weeks. But yeah, that's oh yes, and so I forget what I was going to say, but that was that's coming up next. And yeah, there will be some more enhancements to it too, because you want to control alignment within boxes and blocks of text and stuff like that. So we want that to be very, very fluid as well in 3D, as we're people are starting to make more 3D user interfaces that involve text and infographics and heads-up displays and things like that.
So I just wanted to say thank you again to all the presenters, and thank you, Greg, as well for coming here. So, and presenting. So yeah,
my pleasure.
It's been lovely again. Whoops, it's been lovely again, and I'm really inspired by these talks.